On a cold morning in January 1941, a train arrived at Dearborn, Michigan, bringing a contingent of fortunate young men, fortunate because they had been selected by the United States Navy for special industrial training in a remarkable new school erected for the Navy's use by Mr. Henry Ford and Mr. Edsel Ford in the Ford Motor Company's vast River Rouge plant. Chosen because they had already shown special aptitude, these young men had come from the Naval Training Station at Great Lakes, Illinois, where they had already received some preliminary training, and from stations on the Atlantic and Pacific coasts. Constructed and already awaiting their use were living quarters, together with mess halls, administration building, and other facilities which in time would be sufficient, it was expected, to provide for the needs of over 1,200, later increased to 2,000 students. These young men had been and are being selected from the recruits who enlist in the Navy throughout the nation and who indicate their eligibility while undergoing the initial instructions such as all recruits receive at the training stations when they first enter the service. When the school was placed in commission, Rear Admiral C.W. Nimitz, Chief of the Bureau of Navigation of the Navy Department, came from Washington, D.C. and joined with Rear Admiral John Downs, Commandant of the 9th Naval District, and Commander William E. Miller, commanding officer of the school, in ceremonies in which Mr. Henry and Mr. Edsel Ford placed the training facilities of the plant at the Navy's disposal. Commander C.P. Cecil acted as chairman of the ceremonies, which were broadcast over a national network. In introducing Mr. Henry Ford, Commander Cecil said, "And now I wish to pass this microphone over to Mr. Henry Ford, who has something to tell us regarding his interest in the Navy and his interest in training young men for their life's work. It is an honor for me to introduce that master engineer and manufacturer, Mr. Henry Ford." In his remarks, Mr. Ford declared that during the great national crisis, the Ford organization wanted to do everything possible to help America and the President. He said, "The Navy being our first line of defense, I feel that the training of these young men will vitally benefit our nation." In concluding, he expressed the hope that when the crisis is over, many of these mechanically trained young men could be assimilated in the great industrial organizations. Mr. Henry Ford was followed by Mr. Edsel Ford, president of the company. In the course of his remarks, Mr. Ford described how the preparations for the first contingent had been completed within 40 days after the go-ahead signal had been received. Rear Admiral Nimitz spoke as official representative of the Secretary of the Navy, after which Rear Admiral Downs received the school and placed it in commission. His orders were, "Commander Miller, take command, hoist the colors, set the watch, and prepare for inspection." Following the ceremony, the students commenced their training. Their classrooms were located right in the heart of what might be described as the world's greatest workshop. Here it is possible to study the entire background of industry. Some are schooled in the making of aircraft and diesel engines. Other classes receive instruction in the electrical departments, the machine shops, the press steel shop, the foundries and fabricating shops. They are being taught the trades of tool making and die making and many other crafts. This training has continued without interruption since the school was first placed in commission. As the school is able to utilize equipment of both the Henry Ford Trade School and the Apprentice School and have the help of trained instructors who have functioned in those schools for years, it is efficient and thorough. Indeed, the trade school was established 25 years ago. Instruction ranges all the way from lecture room to actual machine operation. As an example, a class instruction period on gears is followed by one inside a shop where each man has his turn at running a lathe. Rear Admiral Nimitz, during his acceptance speech, told how the modern Navy requires many highly trained men to operate the aircraft, battleships, carriers, cruisers, destroyers, submarines, and auxiliaries which constitute the three fleets. No finer start toward preparation for life could be obtained than these husky, healthy lads of Uncle Sam have been enabled to receive. Aside from the technical training, the physical benefits are almost equally important, and they thrive under the training as might be imagined from the hearty appetites that they display. For feeding so many hungry sailors necessitates a large staff of experienced Navy cooks and bakers. Galley facilities are comparable to those found in any metropolitan hotel. Huge refrigerators keep meats, fruits, vegetables, and dairy products fresh. Soup is brewed in huge steam kettles, more than 5 feet high. It has long been the custom for men aboard ships of the Navy to sleep in hammocks. Men stationed at the Navy Service School do likewise. Well, those first 12 months sped by all too rapidly. By the time the school's first anniversary arrived, the station had undergone a remarkable change. The time is 1 year later. The setting is still the same, only on a much broader scale. The little contingent of 150 recruits has grown to 2,000. The first 2 barracks have grown to 8. Each building provides quarters for 250 men and is comfortably heated and well lighted. As we look down over the station, we see the new 60-bed hospital and the recently added recreation building, which seats 1,100. Here, the men may watch movies or stage their own plays. Provision has been made for indoor athletics with shower and locker rooms in the basement. The chaplain, who has charge of the recreational activity, also has his office in the building, and each week conducts Sunday morning chapel services. Also in the building is a comfortably furnished reception room where sailors may receive their friends. Separate from the building is an athletic field where outdoor sports may be played in season. As we go down the drive, on the left is the mess hall. Beyond is the station's powerhouse where current is generated for lighting and steam heat provided for the barracks and other buildings. The fire plug tells of protection against fire. And now the signal is given for the men to fall in and march to class, as they do each weekday morning. From the barracks they pour into the street, where formation takes but a few seconds. The command comes. Left face. Forward, march. In swinging cadence they are off to spend the morning hours in the shops and classrooms. As this picture shows, they are dressed for cold weather in dungarees and wearing watch caps. In the summer months, of course, they wear the traditional white hats. 8 hours each week are spent in the classrooms and 32 hours in the shop or on jobs. Whether in the classrooms or at work, while the study is directed by forward instructors, the men are always under the command of Navy officers. There is no central location for classes or work, the various shops being scattered about the 1,200 acres of the Fort Rouge plant.
I'm Art Fleming, here at the Rotunda in Dearborn, Michigan. And I'd like you to listen in and look over the shoulders of some 100 safety experts from all over the country who are about to arrive here for an unusual safety forum. Some time ago, Cornell University established a research center devoted to safety in transportation. And one of their prime concerns has been auto crash injuries and what could be done to prevent or at least lessen them. This year, something is being done. Something resulting from this research, something practical, something available to us, the public. A very real forward step is being taken in the automobile industry. But right now, here come the safety experts, so let's go along with them and learn about it.
These are some of Cornell's general findings.
This is John Moore, Director of Automobile Crash Injury Research of Cornell University Medical College.
First, we find that the automobile package is a relatively safe structure. Our data indicate that ejection from the car more than doubles the risk of moderate through fatal grades of injury. This finding destroys the theory that it's safer to be thrown clear. About 40% of all the injured drivers are hurt by the steering wheel assembly. Approximately 38% of the passengers in the right and center front seats are injured by the instrument panel in these injury-producing accidents. 4% of the individuals seated in the front in injury-producing accidents are hurt when they strike the rearview mirror.
Now to the laboratory to meet Alex L. Haynes, executive engineer of the Ford Motor Company.
Consider an accident 45 miles per hour at the moment of impact. The unrestrained driver...
Unrestrained driver? What do you mean by that?
That's the driver who does not use a belt. He's not tied down to the structure of the car. The unrestrained driver, he's traveling as a projectile through the car at 45 miles per hour. That's the original speed of the car. The car is slowing down during this time, and the wheel part of the car is traveling perhaps 33 miles per hour. The relative speed.
Relative speed, now that's a new term.
Yeah, that's the difference between the speed of the driver's chest and the speed of the steering wheel. 45 minus 33, 12 miles per hour.
So in other words, the driver is going at a faster rate of speed than the car itself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, this pendulum here, you see, this weighs about the average weight of a driver, 167 pounds. We're going to swing this into the steering wheel here at 15 miles per hour. Lift up the hoist, please, and let's step back.
All right.
Now let's try this in slow motion. This is what happens to a conventional wheel. Notice, at the moment of impact, the rim breaks away, and the full weight of the driver's chest, of the driver actually, is carried by this small area over this hub. This becomes a lethal instrument. It's a spear. That's what hurts the driver. We literally tried hundreds of different types of wheels before we arrived at the one that was acceptable. Let's see what happens. Now in slow motion. Well, here's what happened to this wheel. This is our safety wheel. The driver's chest struck this rim, and then the whole weight of the driver was carried by this rim and spoke combination, and it absorbed energy as the spokes bent and yielded out of the way. But notice the important thing. The driver's chest never did strike this hub, the small area of the hub. That's important.
All right, now, what would happen to a driver who is wearing a safety belt?
Well, then the condition would be even better, because then the driver's chest would only be carrying 1/3 to 1/2 of the driver's weight, because the rest of the driver, or the lower part of his body, would be carried by the floor structure through the belt. Here's a door with a safety door latch. Try this. Pull this door now. Now I'll impose the stress as I did before. Pull.
Why, it doesn't open at all.
All right, now open it as you would a regular door.
Well, what did that?
Well, the safety door latch. This rotor engages behind the lock plate on the striker element of the lock. It engages like this. It keeps the pillar from springing away from the door.
Now tell me, how is all this research we've seen here today applied in practical use?
Come with me. Incidentally, this car has the safety door lock.
I see, and also the brand new safety belt.
Yeah. Hit that cushion. Punch that cushion, will you? That instrument panel. Punch it hard. That's it. That's our crash padding that we have on our instrument panels.
And also the cushioning on the sun visor.
Yes, that's right. Take a look at that safety rear view mirror.
All right. Let's see, what is it? The new steering wheel also.
Yeah.
This automobile has everything.
Yeah, it has the new devices, the so-called safety devices. Now let's see how these devices actually work in a staged and controlled, real controlled crash.
All right.
Let's go on.
Are we ready? Okay, Dick, let's go.
Here is the same crash in slow motion.
this is the crashing car. Let's take a look inside that car.
All right. I noticed that fire dummy, too, has his head on the dashboard.
Yes, and this new type cushioning on that dashboard probably reduced the injury on this dummy, and also it reduced the facial lacerations that usually occurs in this type of accident.
I see.
And notice this wheel.
Uh-huh.
This wheel probably saved the dummy's chest and probably saved the dummy from severe injury because of the recessed hub. Notice that.
That's very interesting. You know, with all this wreckage here, I'm going to try this door, see if it opens and closes. It opens all right. And it closes very well, too. You know, I'm very impressed with all the work being done on automobile crash safety.
Yes, we think we've made a good beginning. There's still a lot of work to be done, and of course we intend to continue. But there's still one thing I'd like you to see this afternoon.